Coming up today, a new dawn for South Korea-Iran relations as the two nations seal business deals worth tens of billions of dollars and upgrade their bilateral ties during a historic summit in Tehran. South Korea's defense ministry warns yet again that North Korea could conduct a large-scale provocation prior to a rare party congress this week. Plus, South Korea's consumer prices increased by more than 1% for the third straight month in April, further cooling fears about deflation. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Tuesday, the 3rd of May. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. President Park Geun-hye's state visit to Iran is our starting point this lunchtime. And Monday's historic summit between the leaders of Korea and Iran produced a slew of tangible and lucrative results. The meeting, which was the first since diplomatic ties were established 54 years ago, not only focused on boosting economic cooperation, but also touched upon a wide range of cultural and global issues. Our Song Ji-son filed this report from Tehran.
Seoul and Tehran set the framework for the future in their first summit after 5 decades. Presidents Park Geun-hye and Hassan Rouhani adopted a joint statement for stronger cooperation in the future, both on diplomatic and economic fronts. A total of 66 MOUs were signed, including 30 large-scale projects that are worth $37 billion. The deals are expected to bring about a second Middle East boom in Iran, which Seoul has dubbed the last blue ocean of the region. Seoul will be involved in Iran's infrastructure projects ranging from railway construction to building hospitals. The two countries will seek to boost bilateral trade, both in volume and variety, to pre-sanctions levels as Park vows to support Tehran in rebuilding its economy.
우선 양국은 상호 보완적인 경제 구조를 토대로 실질 협력을 확대해 나가기로 하였습니다. 우리는 이란이 조속히 경제를 재건하고 경제 성장이 다시 정상 궤도에 복귀하는 데 보탬이 되도록 양국 간 교역과 투자를 복원하는 데 상호 협력해 나가기로 하였습니다.
Park and Rouhani also discussed regional and global issues, with Tehran showing support for peace and stability on the Korean peninsula against North Korea's nuclear threats.
Iran supports peace on the Korean peninsula and is against any type of nuclear development. Our principle is that there should be no dangerous nuclear weapons in the Middle East or on the Korean peninsula.
While also setting the record as the first non-Muslim female leader to visit Iran, President Bae also sat down with Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, marking another leap in the two countries' diplomatic relations. On Tuesday, President Bae will reveal support to help Korean companies enter the Iranian market, attending a business forum prepared for the 236 business leaders who made the trip to Tehran, the largest delegation ever to accompany a state visit. Song Ji-son, Arirang News, Tehran.
Now, Korea's oil imports from Iran more than doubled in the first 3 months of this year after international sanctions were lifted in January. According to industry data, imports of Iranian crude oil and condensate stood at 22.85 million barrels in the January to March period, up 128% from 10 million barrels a year ago. By value, Korea's oil imports from Iran jumped nearly 18% on year to nearly $630 million in the first quarter of the year. Industry watchers say the increase in imports was driven by condensates, which are used as feedstock for oil refining and other petrochemical industries. Now, strong winds and heavy rain pummeled Korea's southern resort island of Jeju overnight, disrupting flight services and leaving about 14,000 travelers stranded at the international airport there. Now, although strong wind advisories are still in place, flights are reportedly starting again. For more details, we're going to connect to Soo-jin Choi, a freelance journalist based in Jeju. So, Soo-jin, what's the situation at the airport like now?
Hello, Mark. Well, the airport is currently packed with passengers, as you can imagine, waiting to return home after their flights were cancelled on Monday. And this was due to strong winds that reached speeds of up to 31 meters per second. But with the lifting of the strong wind warning this Tuesday morning, flights have partially resumed after 16 hours, although several airlines are still waiting for weather conditions to improve further. So we have yet to hear of a full resumption of operations at the airport here. Now, flight cancellations began around 2 p.m. on Monday, and a total of 173 flights were cancelled until just after 6 a.m. this morning, when a flight from Hong Kong landed at Jeju International. But officials say they do expect the 14,000 passengers whose flights were cancelled to be able to return home within the day today, and they'll be running about 60 to 70 temporary flights, depending on the airlines. That number can change, but they are saying they're expecting nearly 70 temporary flights to be in operation today to get those people back home. Now, out of the total 14,000, about 100 passengers had to actually spend the night inside the airport building, but they were all provided with mattresses, blankets and snacks in accordance with a new airport manual that was made after the chaos, as you'll remember, that mounted from last January's record snowfall, when tens of thousands of travelers remained stranded here on Jeju Island for 3 days.
Well, thank you very much, Sujin, for that report from Jeju Island. Hopefully everyone can get back home as soon as possible. Now, it's not only Jeju, though. It's a wet and dreary May afternoon pretty much everywhere across Korea. You will need an umbrella and ideally a rain jacket handy, as rain is forecast to lash the nation throughout most of the day. Strong blustery winds are making it feel even more miserable for people who are out and about or have to work outside. Wind speeds of about 70 kilometers an hour have been recorded in some areas. Heavy rain advisories are also in effect for most of the south, including Jeju Island, which has seen up to 400 millimeters of rainfall around Mount Halla, so advisable not to go hiking today. The rain is forecast to let up on the west coast starting this afternoon and in the evening for other regions, including the capital Seoul, which is getting drenched right now. Temperature-wise, it's slightly cooler than yesterday due to the rain, with highs ranging between 15 and 22 degrees Celsius for most of the country. Korea's ruling Saenuri Party plans to elect its new floor leader this afternoon. The position is vacant after Won Yu-chol stood aside, hoping to select a new leader that can reform the party, which had a really rather poor showing in last month's general election. Some political heavyweights have thrown their hats into the ring. Na Kyung-won, Yoo Ki-jun and Jong Jin-sok, all four-term lawmakers, will be fighting it out for that post. All have vowed to revamp the party and establish more friendly ties with the opposition parties. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea will discuss when to hold its party convention this afternoon. Interim leader Kim Jong-un is expected to lead the Liberal Party until the party convention selects its new chairman. But party members are actually divided on when to hold it. They can't decide whether to hold it in June or July or wait until the end of the year. Now, also on this Tuesday, the minor opposition People's Party is beginning a series of 20 seminar sessions for its first-term lawmaker-elects. The sessions will cover diverse topics from economy, welfare to security, and aim to ensure they are able to fulfill their legislative duties to the best of their abilities. The United States has revealed that it's considering enforcing sanctions on North Korean government officials on account of the country's dire human rights record. Washington's Special Representative for North Korea Policy, Robert King, says the sanctions will apply to officials who oversaw the management of prison camps or orchestrated kidnappings of foreign citizens. Now, sources in Japan say around 10 individuals are currently on this list, but Kim Jong-un, the young leader of that country, is expected to be left off it for diplomatic reasons. Now, if finalized, the sanctions will prohibit the officials entering the US and freeze any assets they might have in American banks. North Korea could conduct another nuclear test around a rare party congress slated for later this week. Echoing its previous projections, South Korea's defense ministry also said the North could try to test fire mid- or long-range ballistic missiles. North Korea is scheduled to hold its first Workers' Party Congress in 36 years from Friday, and it's widely seen as a chance for the regime's leader Kim Jong-un to solidify his power base. North Korea conducted its fourth nuclear test in January, followed by an intercontinental ballistic missile launch the following month, and it has test-fired numerous ballistic missiles in recent weeks. Korean-American Kenneth Bae has opened up on the torment he suffered during his imprisonment in North Korea. Giving his first live interview since his release around 18 months ago, Bae said he was thankful and grateful for the people involved in trying to get him home. Oh Se-young has the details.
735 days of hell, forced to do back-breaking labour during the day and locked up in a North Korean prison cell at night. Kenneth Bae was the longest-held American imprisoned in North Korea since the Korean War. Mr. Bae finally broke his silence on his roughly 2 years in captivity on Monday during an interview with CNN. After moving to China in 2005, Bae had been running a business that specialised in tours of North Korea. It wasn't until 2013, while on tour in the north, that he was arrested and found guilty of unspecified hostile acts against the regime. His sentence was 15 years with hard labour. Bae recounted how he was forced to toil at a labour camp from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m, working on the field, carrying rocks and shovelling coal. His strength failing him, Bae lost more than 25 kilograms. He said the verbal abuse was almost as bad as the physical pain. Bae recalled how one official taunted him, saying the US had forgotten about him and that he would be stuck in the north until he was 60. What kept Bae going was his Christian faith. He said it enabled him to hold out hope and adjust to his everyday reality. His miracle came true in November 2014. A senior US envoy visited Pyongyang, carrying a letter from President Obama. Shortly afterwards, Bae was released along with another American detainee, Matthew Todd Miller. Reflecting on his imprisonment, Bae says he holds no resentment. He even thanked former basketball star Dennis Rodman, who provoked widespread anger by suggesting Bae had done something to deserve his punishment. Bae said the outburst drew greater attention to his detention, serving as a catalyst for his release. Bae's memoir, titled Not Forgotten, is scheduled to hit bookstores this week. Oh Se-young, Arirang News.
Now in economic news, and South Korea's consumer prices are showing signs of stabilising, growing in the 1% range for the third straight month in April. Still, prices remain below the central bank's target, while prices of items related to daily life have actually soared. Hwang Ji-ae reports.
Statistics Korea says consumer prices rose 1% last month from a year ago. This marks the third straight month of an increase in the 1% range, a stark contrast from last year when price growth remained in the 0% range except for the last 2 months. The rise comes despite low global oil prices that drag prices down overall by about half a percentage point as prices of agricultural and fisheries products jumped. The prices of farm produce that are closely related to people's daily lives rose 5.5% in April from the previous year. Service prices, which includes housing rental fees, also rose 2.2%. So while items from the demand side that make people feel like prices are running high led the overall rise, it was the plunging oil prices from the supply side that kept the prices still well below the central bank's new target of 2%. The finance ministry says, though, the country's core inflation, which excludes volatile agricultural and petroleum products, rose 1.8%. The ministry adds the downside pressure on inflation will let up down the road as global oil prices will gradually pick up pace. Hwang Ji-ae, Arirang News.
Consumers are intensifying their boycott of products made by Oxy Reckitt Benkiser after the company attempted to apologize Monday for selling deadly disinfectants in Korea. The victims and their families rebuffed the apology, reiterating their appeal for the public to hit the company where it hurts. Kim Il-kyun has more.
From April 18th to May 1st, sales of humidifier disinfectants manufactured by Oxy Reckitt Benkiser plunged a whopping 53% compared to the same period last year. Korea's major supermarket chains also reported Tuesday that sales of Oxy's bleaching agents and fabric conditioners also dropped 38% and 7% respectively. Officials from the supermarkets say that despite numerous promotions held on household items last month, sales of Oxy's products continue to slow. Since Oxy's products take up more than half of the supermarket's bleaching and dehumidifying agents, overall sales in the category have been hit. The mass boycott of Oxy Reckitt Benkiser's products is rapidly expanding through social media. In 2011, the British-based company's household humidifier disinfectant was found to contain chemicals linked to hundreds of deaths and serious injuries in Korea. On Monday, the head of Reckitt Benkiser Korea and Japan, Atta Safdar, delivered a formal public apology and offered to pay out more than $4 million in compensation. The victims and their families refused to accept the apology, calling it an attempt to avoid further investigations and end the boycott. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Now, exciting science news now, because astronomers have found 3 planets outside the solar system that could possibly sustain life. In the study published in the journal Nature on Monday, researchers said the 3 Earth-sized planets are orbiting an ultra-cool dwarf star called TRAPPIST-1, which is just 40 light-years away. The dim parent star is about 1/10 the mass of our Sun and 0.5% as bright, but could provide the right amount of heat to warm the planets to a temperature that supports water and, as a result, potentially life. The discovery raises the hope for finding life beyond Earth, as the planets are similar in size and temperature to our home planet. Scientists are currently observing the planets, hoping to find evidence of water or methane molecules, which could indicate there is some life on the surface. Well, that's all we have for now on this wet and windy Tuesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for watching. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Until then, goodbye.